So this video has 3 acts. On the first one, we are going to be automating the building and releasing of the Docker image to Docker Hub. In the second one, we are going to automate the infrastructure repository to automatically apply changes to our cluster. And in the third act, we are going to glue both of them, and we are going to get new images published on the repository, the infrastructure repository patched with a new version tag, and then we are going to automatically send a pull request to the infrastructure repository. And then after merge of that pull request, things will roll out. Let's get started. We got our application running locally using Docker and Docker Compose, and we also got the deployment configured using Kubernetes, but we have been doing most things manually. In this video, I want to automate most part of this workflow, and I want to show you one workflow that I've been using. It's been working for me. Yeah, it's based on GitHub Actions. I already have a GitHub action here. I added behind the scenes. It's a CI one, so it essentially will run the test on every push. It's not related to our work with Docker and Kubernetes, but I think it's really important, and it's a necessary step to achieve the continuous deployment workflow that I'm about to show you, because you have to make sure that your code behaves as you expect it, and that's what tests and continuous integration can show us. I'm not going over what's going on here, but feel free to dig in and steal code or whatever. We are going to be using some GitHub Actions for all this automation. One of them is this one, publishes Docker containers, and that's essentially what it does. So here's the documentation on how you can use it. Yeah, let's use it. I'm gonna create a file here, a new workflow, and I'm gonna call it docker-images.yaml. Now I'm going to paste the code and we are going to discuss it. So similar to the other one, I want this workflow to run on every push, but differently than the other one, I only want it to run on pushes to the master branch, not on every branch. So if we inspect here the build job on this workflow, we are also checking out the code as we are doing in the other one. And in this other step here, we are creating an environmental variable called release name, and its value is going to be the GitHub SHA, the commit hash, but only the first 7 digits of the hash. And we are going to be using that as the tag name for our image. And here's how you can use that GitHub action that I showed. And we can specify some variables here or some configuration. This is a Docker image name that we are going to be building. And here's where the Docker file is. So you can specify using the Docker file property. We also have to specify the username and password of our Docker Hub, where we are publishing the image to. And I'm not using my Docker Hub password here. I created a token that can be used for tasks like this, for automation. I've added that token to my repository in the settings. Secrets, there are some secrets here. The first one is the one that we saw, Docker password and Docker username. And the other 2 we are going to be using later. The Nginx image is pretty much the same, but we change the image name and where the Docker file is. And here is where we specify the tags that we are building. So we are building the latest tag as well as the release name, which is again the first 7 digits of the commit hash. If we were building on tags, only on push tags, we could use the tag number, and that maybe it's better, but yeah, commit hashes it also works fine. So let's add it to the repository and push it. As I'm pushing this code to master, it will already trigger this workflow, so we will see the new build going on. So if we refresh here, we should see a pending build or build running. Yeah, there are 2 of them, the tests and the Docker image. And I'm gonna pause here while this runs, and I'm gonna resume once it's done. The build has finished. And if we check here, it has successfully published the images to Docker Hub. We are going to check on Docker Hub, but first pay attention to this. This is the hash that triggered this build. That means that should be a new tag on Docker Hub using this same hash. So 7EDE469. If we go back there, then we refresh here. So here it is, the hash, the build with that hash, 7EDE469. From this point on, we can get this tag number, go to the infrastructure repository and update our images. And now we can new release. Wait, forgot to add the files. So we can commit these changes, add the new release, push our changes if we want to. I'm gonna push it here. There's no automation going on. But I still have to deploy it locally. So I have to manually run the deploy script. Everything should work, by the way. So now if you go back to the dashboard, we should see a new release going on. That's good, but let's automate this part. I'm gonna create a directory here called GitHub and workflows, the same way as we did with the other one. And in here, I'm gonna create a new workflow called apply.yaml, and I'm gonna paste the code here, but yeah, that's pretty good. Okay, let me go from the beginning, okay? So in the same way as we are doing in the application workflow, which only builds on master, we are also doing that here for the apply. And we are using a custom action again, which this one only downloads the DLCTL and connects it to our DigitalOcean account. And I also have here in my infrastructure repository, I also have some secrets. So I have here the DigitalOcean access token, which only has read access, and the Kubernetes cluster ID. You can get the cluster ID using DLCTL Kubernetes cluster list. So you get this ID, which should be unique and don't change, and you create a secret here. So for this to work, I actually have to create the secret file as a secret as well. So I'm gonna copy this content and I'm gonna paste the entire file as a secret. I'm gonna create a new secret, paste it here. And what's the secret name? Laravel app secret. Okay. Now we are ready. Let's go back to the workflow and I'll go in more details. So this step is going to install DLCTL and connect it to DigitalOcean account using our token. And this one is where we are going to apply the changes to our cluster. So yeah, patching the infrastructure, which is, applying the changes. For that, we have downloaded the kubectl tool, and we also downloaded the customized tool, but we don't need this yet. So I'm gonna remove this for now. It's for a later step. And here we are creating the .env file from the secret that we just created, which is also in an environment variable here. Yeah, it's important that you wrap this on quotes, otherwise, yeah, things can go wrong here. And then we are going to call the same script that we have been using locally, but from CI. So if we add this and push, we should see a new build coming up. But that build is going to essentially reapply the same manifest that we have, so there is no changes yet. And technically there will be no changes in our cluster. So if we check here, under details, we should see how this will work. So as you can see, it already applied the changes, but nothing actually changed. So yeah, let's try something. Let's change our customization, change the version back to 0.0.5. That should be one of these. Let's apply it. And now there should be a new workflow going on. And that will also patch our infrastructure. So if we go back to the Kubernetes dashboard and we refresh here, we should see the release going out, or actually maybe we don't because it was faster maybe. Okay, so the release is going out and we can see here the image version changed. That's good. That means that whenever we change the version number and we push to the master branch in the infrastructure repository, it automatically applies the changes to our cluster. So that's the second act of this video. Let's go to the third one. In this third and final act, we are going to be gluing all this that we have been doing so far and getting full automated workflow of releasing new images and patching the infrastructure. For this to work, we have to find a way to patch these image versions here. And we are going to be using Kustomize for that. If you remember from previous videos, we have been using Kustomize here. Well, yeah, we are using Kustomize, but we have been using the version that ships built-in with kubectl. And we need to use the standalone this time. And we need that because there's a feature on that that's not available in the built-in version. And you can go here to the installation steps and find the one that works for your distro. Once you do it, you have the Kustomize CLI tool, Kustomize, available for you. And the feature that we want to use is the image patching. So if you go to the Kustomize image example, that should be here in the examples. You should be redirected to this one. And there is one about images here, image names and tags. So you can use Kustomize to edit one image in your customization file, and then you give the name of the image and the actual Docker image that you want it to be patched. So in our case, you can experiment with it. We can run Kustomize edit set image and Laravel app and nginx. And that's going to be using the Tony SM Docker for Laravel app and nginx. And the version that we are going to be using is 004, whatever, just so we can test it. And if we refresh here, we can see that it changed the image. That's good, but it also added some stuff here. And this, yeah, we have to add this. So we are going to do it on the top. It's pretty similar to the other Kubernetes manifests. So let's leave it here. But it also did something that we didn't intend to. It actually removed our environment file. And we don't want that. That would be creating an empty secret in our Kubernetes cluster and screwing things up. And it does that because there is a mismatch in how Kustomize works when it's built-in and the standalone version. That's because the version that ships built-in with kubectl is actually an old version, and the most recent one changed on how it works with environment files. And yeah, it simply doesn't know the config that we are using, so it removes it. Instead of using this, we have to use envs, and then we can specify the file that we want, like this. Now, if we change the image back to the 005, it should update here, and it kept the secret untouched. That's what we want. But there is a downside now. We can't use Kustomize or the built-in version kubectl apply-k. We can't use this version. That's because the built-in version doesn't understand these envs, so it quacks. That's unfortunate, but there is a workaround. Instead of using the standalone version, let's use kubectl-f, and instead of specifying where the file is, let's tell it to read from standard input, and then we can use the standalone version of Kustomize to build the files, and we can pipe the output to the kubectl apply command. So if we run this, it should build the manifest, send it to the kubectl apply, and that should apply the changes to our cluster, which is what we want. So it's a workaround, but yeah, it works. We have to change our deploy script to use the workaround instead. And we also have to change our workflow to install the Kustomize, the standalone Kustomize. Let me find the script here. Then I can copy it. So this installs Kustomize the binary and then moves it to the USR local bin, which should make it available. So our deploy script just can use it like we have been using so far. So let's apply this change. And then if we go back to the repository, to the infrastructure repository, and we refresh, there should be a new action going on. Yeah. And if everything works fine, we should be able to see this output, which means that it was able to patch the changes to our cluster, but nothing changed. So yeah, we changed it to use the standalone version of Kustomize. And we need that because we are going to patch the image, but we haven't done that yet. And the way we are going to do it is we are going to be patching it from the application repository. So in here, we are going to check out the infrastructure repository, patch the new version with the new tag that we just published to Docker Hub, and send a pull request to this infrastructure repository, which then we can merge it. And automatically changes applied to master will roll out to the Kubernetes cluster. So we can have the full picture automated. For that, we are going to be using yet another binary, which is GitHub's Hub CLI tool. There's a new version. I believe it's github.com CLI. It seems to do everything that the Hub tool was able to do. But yeah, I haven't used it yet, so I better stick with the one that I use. So let's get started. Let's change our workflow to publish the image, to patch the image in our infrastructure repository and roll it out. So if we go back here to our Docker images workflow. Now this one is a bit nasty. I'm gonna paste it here and then we can discuss. So what we are going to do here. Here we are going to use the secret that we saw earlier, which is the Git email and the GitHub token. Well, the Git token secret. And we are assigning that to a GitHub token environment variable. We do have a GitHub token available in our workflows, but yeah, it doesn't quite work for what we want. We are committing changes to an external repository here, and that wouldn't work. So yeah, we need a token that is able to do that. And I created a personal token and assigned it here. You could create a machine user just for your project and give it the correct permissions, the more granular permissions, instead of using your own personal token. But yeah, I did this because it's quicker for me. So the GitHub name is something, whatever you want actually. And the password is pretty much the same as the token anyways. So here's the Git repo that we are going to clone, the infrastructure repository. And for that, we need Kustomize, the built-in. We are using the same script here to install it. And we also need to install the Hub tool, the Hub CLI tool. So that's what this part is doing. We need to configure Git to use our token. And that's one way that I found, and it works fine. But I have to confess that it's not the most elegant solution, I think. And since your repository will be private anyways, there's not really a security risk here, I guess. And now to the most interesting part, which is we are going to use Hub to clone the infrastructure repository. Then we are going to create a branch using the release version. The release version is actually the release name. So we are going to be using the same environment variables that we use to create the image tag name. So this means we are going to create a branch called release dash and the hash, the commit hash that we are building, or the tag name that we are building. And then we are going to use kustomize edit, the same command that we have used locally. We are going to use it from this GitHub action. This should patch the image. Well, I changed something here. Yeah. This should patch the image version with the new version. And then we are going to do some check here. So if there are changes, then we are going to configure some more bits to Git, which is the name and the email. And then we are going to add the file that changed, which is the customization file, since we changed the new tag name for both images. And then we are going to create a commit here. And after that, we are going to create a pull request to that repository. So all that is automated. If nothing changed, which means that we built a version that already exists or it's already being used in the cluster. So nothing changed. Yeah, we don't have to do anything. So with this, we should get a new pull request in our production, in our infrastructure repository. And yeah, let's see if this works. First, let me check if I have all the environment variables here. Git token, git email, yeah, should be fine. So let's commit it. And let's push it. This should trigger this workflow, which should make everything for us. And a new pull request should show up in the infrastructure repository. So let's wait a bit. If we go here now, yeah, just so we can see more details. So it's apparently done. And if we check here, completed, and if we go to the repository, to the infrastructure repository, luckily there should be a new pull request here, and there seems to be it. So let's watch it. So there's a pull request with a new version name, and if we check the changes, yeah, it only changes the version name, so that's good. And it also shares the same hash as the last build that we got. So yeah, I can't approve it because it's using my own user. So yeah, let's merge it and see it rolling out to production. Now if we go here, there should be a new build. And yeah, we can see here that it configured a new change for the web and worker. If we go to the cluster now and refresh here, there should be a new deployment going on. So this is it. It's using the image version, the image tag that we just released. So yeah, that's it. That's how you can get the full workflow of your image building, publishing to Docker Hub, and then you patch in your infrastructure repository. And when things are merged there, then things are automatically applied to your cluster. That's what I wanted to share. I know that this might feel a lot, but when you get it working, it's actually a really nice workflow. And yeah, I think there are ways to speed things up, especially in the image building process, because I think we can leverage some caching there. But yeah, so I hope you liked it and see you on the next video.